My alien neighbor is in mating season. I didn't expect these consequences. HFY Sci-fi Story. Myra had always enjoyed the quiet of the outpost. Nestled on the edge of an icy ridge in a newly colonized star system, the research station was designed for long-term study of the environment, and unexpectedly for the study of Scifi, her alien neighbor. For weeks, Myra had watched him, documenting patterns, colors, and movements, trying to understand a species that communicated not with words, but with light, color, and subtle vibrations. The morning began like any other, with Myra performing routine checks of the observation deck. She adjusted sensors, calibrated cameras, and recorded environmental readings. Scifi's habitat pulsed softly in response to the rising sun of the distant star, his colors shifting gently. Myra leaned against the railing, notebook in hand, fascinated by the rhythm of the alien's signals. Even after weeks, she felt like she was barely scratching the surface of his intelligence. Today, however, something was different. Scifi's colors flickered more rapidly than usual, pulsing with intensity that made the walls of his habitat glow. Myra frowned. She had studied the patterns closely, and nothing in her notes suggested that he would behave this way now. The alien moved with a strange urgency, his body vibrating slightly, and the air seemed charged, as if the signals themselves were reaching into the station's atmosphere. Curious, Myra activated the external cameras and watched as the nearby flora responded. Plants that usually remained dormant now twisted and glowed faintly in rhythm with Scifi's pulses. The entire habitat seemed alive, reacting to the alien in ways that were beautiful but also slightly unsettling. Myra scribbled notes rapidly, trying to capture the changes. "Scifi," she murmured aloud, though she knew he could not hear her in the human sense. The alien paused, his colors shifting to a brilliant golden hue, and Myra had the strange sensation that he was aware of her presence more fully than ever before. Suddenly, Scifi released a sequence of colors so bright and rapid that Myra had to step back. The air hummed with energy, and the walls of the habitat shimmered in response. Myra's stomach turned a little at the intensity. Something about this sequence felt urgent, almost insistent. She realized then that Scifi was signaling not just randomly, he was announcing something. Her mind raced. She had studied mating behaviors of several species, but Scifi's signals were unlike any she had encountered. Could he be in mating season? The thought both thrilled and worried her. If Scifi's species was now in a heightened state, it could attract other visitors or cause unexpected consequences for humans nearby. Before she could think further, the first sign appeared. A small, glowing form appeared near the edge of the habitat, hovering and shimmering in response to Scifi's signal. Myra blinked, startled. This visitor wasn't part of the research plan. The station's records showed no nearby species capable of interstellar travel arriving at this sector. And yet, there it was, responding instinctively to Scifi's vibrant signals. Myra ran to the control console, tapping at the sensors and trying to get a better view. The small visitor's body pulsed with light, seemingly communicating in patterns she could barely comprehend. Scifi responded immediately, arching his body and releasing bursts of golden and violet light. The interaction was mesmerizing, but Myra's mind was already calculating risks. If more visitors appeared, the colony could be overwhelmed. The signals, amplified by Scifi's excitement, were spreading beyond the habitat. Myra felt a tension building in her chest. She had to act carefully. Any wrong move could provoke aggression, or worse, draw the attention of a species the colony was not prepared to deal with. She activated the external array, hoping to measure the intensity of the signals outside the immediate habitat. The readings confirmed her fear. The energy was spreading, creating a subtle field that influenced nearby flora and, remarkably, humans in proximity. Myra noticed a slight tingling on her skin, a sensation that felt like heightened awareness. Her vision sharpened, her thoughts came faster, and her reflexes seemed unusually precise. "Interesting," she whispered, realizing that Scifi's mating signals were having unexpected effects on human physiology. The intensity, the patterns, and the energy were stimulating her senses, improving her perception and reaction time. She glanced at her colleagues in the observation deck, who were equally close to the signals. Some were moving with subtle changes in coordination, responding faster than usual to minor alerts. Her fascination grew alongside her concern. If Scifi's signals attracted other species, humans might need these enhanced abilities to react. She had to monitor, study, and understand everything before it escalated. The small visitor hovered near Scifi's habitat, pulsing in response to the colors, and Myra could see that the alien's behavior had triggered a ripple effect. The signals were no longer confined. They were attracting attention across space in ways she could not yet predict. Minutes stretched into hours as Myra observed and recorded. The visitor's movements became more deliberate, responding to Scifi's bursts of color with patterns that suggested curiosity or perhaps evaluation. Myra felt a thrill. Humanity had never been in such close proximity to a truly alien intelligence in a way that allowed observation of instinctive communication and interspecies interaction. Suddenly, Scifi's pulses intensified dramatically, brighter than anything Myra had seen before. The small visitor responded with a flurry of light, and Myra noticed new patterns emerging in the environment. Some plants bent toward Scifi, others emitted faint glows. Even the atmosphere seemed to hum with energy. Myra felt herself swept up in the intensity, her senses tingling, and she realized that humans were physiologically affected in ways that could provide an advantage or danger. Her training kicked in. She activated shields around the observation deck to ensure the station's integrity, while carefully documenting every signal and reaction. Scifi, for his part, seemed oblivious to the technical systems but fully aware of her presence. The alien's colors shifted in complex sequences, as if acknowledging her observation, even his own vulnerability in this heightened state. As the day progressed, the small visitor was joined by more. Glimmering forms, some tiny, some the size of Scifi himself, appeared near the habitat, drawn by the signals. Each responded instinctively to the bursts of color, moving in ways that were curious, cautious, or exploratory. Myra's heart pounded. The colony was no longer isolated. It had become a hub of interstellar attention. Despite the tension, a strange sense of wonder filled Myra. She had anticipated monitoring Scifi's behavior for research purposes, but this was something far greater. Humans were experiencing a direct link with an alien species, emotional and physiological state, their minds sharpened, their instincts heightened. She realized the mating season was not just a natural process. It was a catalyst for connection, learning, and adaptation. By afternoon, the number of visitors outside had grown, some cautious, some bold, and Myra knew that controlling the situation required creativity and precision. She instructed her team to maintain calm, observe patterns, and adjust responses carefully. Any sudden movement or error could escalate into chaos. She moved to the external cameras, zooming in on Scifi and the visitors. The sequences of colors and reactions were mesmerizing, almost hypnotic, but Myra focused on the patterns. The alien's movements were deliberate, calculated, and instinctive. By observing and documenting, she began to recognize repeating sequences, responses that could be predicted and, if necessary, guided. Her mind raced with possibilities. If humans could harness the subtle enhancements provided by Scifi's signals, they could anticipate and respond to alien behavior with unprecedented speed. It was a rare opportunity, a test of adaptability, perception, and creativity. Myra felt a surge of determination. Humanity had a chance not just to survive the mating season, but to learn, understand, and thrive. As evening approached, the glowing forms of visitors began to settle near Scifi, still curious but no longer chaotic. The alien's pulses slowed slightly, the intensity of the colors decreasing as the signals reached a stable rhythm. Myra allowed herself a small breath of relief. The colony had survived the first day of the mating season, and humans had demonstrated an unexpected advantage: sharper senses, quicker reactions, and enhanced perception. Myra looked at Scifi, who now glowed softly in golden light. He was beautiful in a way humans could barely comprehend, a being of light, color, and instinct. She realized that his presence had not only changed the environment, but had revealed latent capabilities in humans, an unplanned experiment with extraordinary results. She turned back to the observation deck, where her colleagues were equally alert and engaged. The day had been intense, exhausting, and yet exhilarating. Humans had faced the unknown and adapted in ways that no manual or protocol could predict. Myra's mind swirled with questions, hypotheses, and plans for tomorrow. The mating season was just beginning, and the consequences would grow. Yet, for the first time, she felt certain of one thing: humans were more capable than they had ever realized. The icy landscape outside shimmered in the fading light, alien forms moving gracefully, and the station hummed with the quiet energy of heightened perception and anticipation. Myra smiled faintly, her notebook full of observations, and allowed herself a single thought. Whatever came next, humanity was ready. Zephyr pulsed softly in the distance, a reminder that the universe was alive, unpredictable, and full of challenges, and that humans had the ability, intelligence, and creativity to meet them. The mating season had begun, and with it, a journey of discovery, adaptation, and triumph that would test and ultimately reveal the remarkable capabilities of humanity. The colony had barely begun to settle into a rhythm when the first signs of chaos appeared. Myra stood at the observation deck of the outpost, her eyes fixed on the growing cluster of lights outside. At first, she thought it was just a shift in the weather, the reflection of the distant sun bouncing off the icy surface of the nearby ridge. But then she noticed patterns, strange, deliberate movements she had never recorded before. The air itself seemed to hum differently, charged with a tension she could almost taste. Zephyr's behavior had become unpredictable. The alien's bright, shifting colors pulsed rhythmically, and his body quivered in ways that suggested excitement, though Myra wasn't entirely sure if she could call it excitement by human standards. She had read the notes, memorized the diagrams, and spent weeks studying Zephyr's species, yet nothing in the manuals explained the sudden bursts of energy, the unplanned activities that now filled the alien's habitat. Then the first visitor arrived. It was small, almost insignificant compared to Zephyr's size, but it had the same curious glow and unsteady, floating movements. Myra frowned. She hadn't expected any other species to appear so close to the outpost. This system was sparsely inhabited, and the nearest recorded intelligent species were light years away. The small visitor drifted in circles around Zephyr, drawn by the vivid colors and rhythmic vibrations. Zephyr responded almost instantly, arching and releasing bursts of light that seemed to communicate without sound. Myra watched, fascinated and anxious, as the pattern repeated and multiplied. Soon more visitors arrived, each attracted by the signals in ways that humans could barely predict. The colony's alarms were quiet at first, only gentle reminders of unusual activity, but the tension escalated quickly. Lights flickered across the observation panels, each one representing a new alien visitor, each one a potential threat. Some moved with curiosity, their bodies transparent and harmless in appearance. Others had jagged edges and sharp tendrils, their intentions harder to read. Myra's mind raced. If the aliens were simply curious, she could study them. If they were aggressive, she needed a strategy to protect the colony. She activated the communication array, attempting to send out a warning signal in the simplest universal patterns she knew, but there was no response. The visitors seemed immune or indifferent to human attempts at communication. It was then she noticed something unexpected. Humans nearby and exposed to Zephyr's signals were changing too. Myra observed her colleagues, some standing near the observation deck, some moving between equipment modules, and saw subtle but remarkable differences. Their reflexes seemed faster, their senses sharper, and an unusual clarity marked their problem-solving abilities. It was as if the alien signals had triggered latent capabilities in the human mind and body. Myra's heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and fear. This was unlike any situation she had encountered before. Humans had always been adaptive, yes, but the speed and extent of these changes were unprecedented. She realized immediately that the very presence of Zephyr, in this heightened state of mating activity, was inadvertently giving humanity an edge. She dashed down to the lower levels of the outpost, where a group of engineers were trying to make sense of the situation. Alarms had begun to blare quietly, lights flashing on the panels as new visitors arrived, some curious, some threatening. "Look at this," Myra said, pointing to the display. "They're signals, they're affecting us. Not in a bad way, but in a way that changes our perception and reaction times. We might be able to manage this if we understand it quickly." An engineer, Tomas, shook his head, skeptical but intrigued. "Are you saying we're stronger because of a mating display?" "That's impossible." "Not impossible," Myra replied. "Just unexpected, I need samples, recordings, anything that can help us understand Zypher's frequency patterns. And I need volunteers, people willing to be near the signals safely so we can study the effects firsthand. It was risky. There was no guarantee it would be safe, but the potential was undeniable. A few brave souls stepped forward, ready to participate under careful supervision. Myra led them into the observation chamber, where Zypher's habitat glowed with intense colors, a mesmerizing display of light and rhythm. As they approached, the visitors outside seemed to respond. Some lingered at a safe distance, drawn by curiosity, while others pushed closer, probing the boundary of the outpost with slow, careful movements. Myra and her team focused on the task at hand, documenting each reaction, each subtle change in their own capabilities. Hours passed. The signals fluctuated unpredictably, sometimes causing bursts of energy among the humans, sometimes a momentary haze of distraction. Myra adjusted the positioning, the distance, and even the timing of their exposure, trying to find a pattern that could stabilize the effects. And then she noticed something crucial. Zypher's behavior, chaotic as it seemed, was following an internal logic. The alien was attempting to attract attention, yes, but also to establish dominance among potential mates. The visitors were responding not only to the colors, but to the intensity and rhythm of the signals, creating a network of interactions that Myra could map and predict with careful observation. "This is incredible," she whispered to herself. "We can predict the responses. If we control the signals just a little, we might be able to guide these visitors safely." Tomas leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the display. "Guide them? You mean like a shepherd?" "Exactly," Myra said, a hint of excitement in her voice. "We can use the patterns to influence their behavior. If we're careful, we can prevent chaos. And more importantly, we can protect the colony without violence." The next phase required precise timing and coordination. Myra assigned specific roles to each volunteer, some monitoring Zypher's signals, others observing visitor reactions, and a few ready to adjust environmental controls to modulate the effects of the signals. It was a delicate dance, one misstep potentially causing panic or aggression among the visitors. Despite the tension, Myra felt a thrill she had never experienced in her career. Humanity had always adapted, yes, but this was something different. This was creativity under pressure, intuition coupled with rapid learning. She watched as her team adjusted, reacting faster than she could have anticipated, demonstrating the very qualities that made humans uniquely resilient. By evening, the strategy began to take shape. The visitors were responding to subtle changes in the signals, clustering in designated areas instead of wandering unpredictably. Some of the more aggressive or uncertain visitors began to retreat, their curiosity satisfied or their confusion gently redirected. Zypher, for his part, seemed to understand, at least partially, the humans' intentions. The alien slowed the bursts of color, pulsed in patterns that mirrored the adjustments Myra had made, almost as if he recognized an ally in her. It was the first moment of interspecies cooperation the colony had ever witnessed. As night fell on the icy surface, the outpost settled into a tense calm. The visitors remained nearby, still drawn by Zypher's signals but behaving predictably. Myra and her team, exhausted but exhilarated, reviewed the data they had collected. They had learned something fundamental. Human adaptability was more than physical or mental. It was the ability to respond creatively to the unknown, to turn potential threats into opportunities. Myra stood by the observation window, looking out at the glowing silhouettes of alien visitors under the dim light of the distant sun. She felt a surge of pride and hope. Humanity had faced the unknown and had not only survived but begun to understand, to shape the circumstances in their favor without aggression. And yet, she knew this was only the beginning. The mating season would continue, Zypher's signals would grow stronger, and more visitors could arrive at any time. The colony's survival depended not just on technology, but on humanity's ingenuity, courage, and the ability to learn faster than anyone or anything else in the galaxy. Myra took a deep breath, ready for what the next day would bring. She was certain of one thing: humans were capable of more than anyone had imagined. And in this strange, unpredictable corner of the universe, that capability was exactly what would make the difference between disaster and triumph. The lights outside shimmered, reflecting the growing complexity of interactions. Myra smiled faintly. Humanity had entered a new chapter, one where understanding, creativity, and adaptability were weapons as powerful as any technology. And for the first time, she truly believed that humans had a place in the cosmos not merely as observers, but as intelligent, influential participants. The hum of the outpost and the distant glimmer of alien signals filled the room, a reminder that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and full of possibilities. Myra's mind raced with plans, theories, and strategies, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new opportunities to prove that humans could rise to meet the unknown, no matter how strange, beautiful, or dangerous it might be. The morning light spilled over the icy ridges, casting long, pale shadows across the colony. Myra had barely slept, her mind buzzing with plans and contingencies. Scifi's signals had stabilized for now, but she knew the aliens' mating season was far from over. The unpredictable bursts of color, the intensity of the pulses, and the sudden arrival of new visitors meant that today could be far more challenging than yesterday. The observation deck was crowded with volunteers, each focused on monitoring the signals and the reactions of the visitors. Myra moved among them, checking instruments, taking notes, and offering instructions. There was a rhythm to the work now, a careful choreography that balanced observation with intervention. Humanity's advantage, its adaptability, was being tested, and Myra felt a surge of pride at how quickly her team had adjusted. Suddenly, one of the monitors flickered. A new visitor had arrived, larger and more imposing than any seen before. Its body shimmered with iridescent patterns, and its movements were fast, deliberate, and intelligent. Myra's heart raced. Unlike the smaller visitors, this one seemed to assess the environment with purpose, calculating its approach. "Tomas, focus on the containment field," she ordered. "We don't know if it's hostile or just curious. Keep the boundary active, but don't trigger alarms yet." Tomas nodded, his hands flying over the controls. The field hummed to life, forming a subtle barrier that was nearly invisible to the eye but strong enough to redirect the visitor's path if necessary. Myra watched as it moved closer, hovering near Scifi's habitat. The alien's colors pulsed rapidly, almost nervously, as if aware of the newcomer's presence. Myra realized immediately what was happening. Scifi's signals were attracting more than just passive visitors. They were drawing intelligent beings capable of independent thought and strategy. The challenge was no longer simple observation. It was active management of interspecies interactions, and the margin for error was shrinking. "We need to adapt," Myra said to her team. "Yesterday's methods won't work with this level of intelligence. We have to anticipate responses before they happen." She quickly devised a plan. By analyzing Scifi's signal patterns and the behavior of the new visitor, Myra could predict which sequences would attract or repel, calm or excite. She assigned roles. Some would focus on adjusting the signals, others on tracking visitor movements, and a few would manage environmental controls to ensure the colony remained safe. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Myra moved between consoles, her eyes scanning data feeds, adjusting frequencies, and issuing commands. The visitors responded almost immediately, their movements reflecting subtle changes in Scifi's pulses. The larger visitor approached carefully, testing boundaries, but Myra noticed something remarkable. The humans near the observation deck were reacting faster than ever. Reflexes, perception, and decision-making were enhanced, allowing them to make split-second adjustments that kept the colony safe. "This is incredible," Tomas said, his voice tense but excited. "We're predicting behavior. We're actually controlling the outcome without using force." Myra nodded, feeling the same exhilaration. "This is what I meant yesterday. Human adaptability isn't just physical. It's creative problem-solving, intuition, and the ability to learn on the fly. That's what gives us an edge." As the day progressed, more visitors arrived, each with unique shapes, colors, and behaviors. Some were curious, drifting slowly near Scifi's habitat. Others were more assertive, testing boundaries with careful precision. Myra realized the colony's survival depended not on technology alone, but on the humans' ability to read patterns, anticipate reactions, and guide outcomes. At one point, a small group of visitors clustered near the outer ridge, their bright colors flickering in rapid sequences. Myra recognized the pattern. It was a form of communication among themselves, a kind of coordination she hadn't seen before. She adjusted Scifi's signals in response, sending subtle pulses that aligned with the visitor's rhythms. Slowly, the cluster moved in a controlled path, away from sensitive areas of the colony. It was a delicate balance. One wrong signal, one miscalculated pulse, and the situation could have escalated into panic or aggression. Yet with each adjustment, Myra felt the undeniable truth. Humans could manage chaos with intelligence and creativity. This was not brute force. It was finesse, strategy, and intuition combined. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, the larger visitor made its move. It hovered near Sci, analyzing the alien's behavior, and then directed its attention to the human team. Its movements were deliberate, almost investigative, as if it were testing the boundaries of human capability. Myra held her breath. This was the ultimate test. Could humans, influenced by Scifi's signals but guided by their own intellect, manage an intelligent, independent threat? Myra signaled her team. Keep the field stable, adjust only in small increments. Let's see how it responds to controlled variation. The larger visitor hesitated, pulsing with light in patterns that mirrored Scifi's signals. It approached, testing limits, then retreated slightly when a subtle adjustment was made. Myra's team reacted in perfect coordination, shifting signal sequences, modifying barriers, and guiding its movements. Slowly but surely, the visitor began to follow a predictable path, allowing the colony to maintain safety while still observing this extraordinary being. For Myra, it was a revelation. Humanity had not only adapted, they had evolved in real time, using perception, logic, and creativity to manage complex interspecies interactions. The mating season, chaotic and unpredictable, had inadvertently provided humans with a unique advantage. Heightened senses, faster reactions, and intuitive problem-solving abilities that made them a force the aliens had not anticipated. Hours passed, and the larger visitor finally moved to a stable position, observing Sci without threatening the colony. Myra exhaled, a mixture of relief and exhilaration flooding her senses. The humans had succeeded not through aggression, but through understanding and adaptability. "Look at that," Tomas whispered, pointing to the display. "We guided it. We actually guided it." Myra smiled faintly. "Yes, and this is only the beginning. If we can maintain this, we can not only survive but thrive. We can influence outcomes, protect the colony, and learn more about these species than anyone else could." As evening fell, the visitors began to settle, their movements slowing in response to Scifi's diminishing signals. The colony, once on the brink of chaos, found a fragile balance. Humans and aliens coexisted in a delicate dance, each responding to cues and adjustments, each learning from the other. Myra moved through the observation deck, checking on each volunteer. Fatigue was visible, but so was excitement. They had been part of something extraordinary, something that transcended ordinary scientific study. They had participated in a demonstration of human ingenuity, creativity, and adaptability at its finest. She paused by the main viewport, watching Sci pulse softly in the fading light. The alien's colors shimmered, subtle and calm now, a stark contrast to the frenzied energy of earlier hours. Myra felt a sense of awe. Scifi's species had its own intelligence, its own instincts, and yet humans had found a way to interact, influence, and coexist without force or aggression. "This is what makes us human," she whispered to herself. "Our ability to think, to adapt, to respond in ways no one else can. This is why we survive, why we thrive." Even as the day ended, Myra knew the challenges were far from over. Scifi's mating season would continue, new visitors could arrive at any moment, and the colony's survival would always depend on the humans' ability to learn, adapt, and innovate faster than the unknown forces around them. Yet, for the first time, she felt confident. Humans were no longer simply reacting, they were shaping outcomes. They were not just part of the universe, they were influencing it, using intelligence and creativity as tools more powerful than any weapon. The hum of the outpost, the shimmering lights of distant visitors, and the steady pulse of Scifi's habitat created a rhythm that felt almost like music. Myra listened, absorbing the patterns, the flows, and the interactions. She realized that humanity's role in the galaxy was not just survival. It was leadership through understanding, creativity, and the courage to face the unknown with intelligence and empathy. She smiled, a quiet, determined smile. Today had been a test, and humans had passed, not by force, not by chance, but by the unique qualities that set them apart. And tomorrow, when the signals grew stronger and the challenges more complex, she knew they would rise again, not merely as survivors, but as pioneers, as thinkers, as humans capable of shaping the universe itself. Myra watched the last rays of sunlight fade, knowing that the colony had proven something extraordinary. Humans had faced unpredictability, complexity, and potential danger, and had not only survived but adapted, learned, and thrived. The mating season, chaotic and beautiful, had revealed a hidden strength, a latent capability that no other species had anticipated. As the stars emerged in the dark sky above, Myra allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humanity was more than resilient. It was brilliant, creative, and capable of turning uncertainty into opportunity. And in this corner of the galaxy, surrounded by the glow of alien visitors and the rhythmic pulses of Scifi, she knew that humans had a future not only as inhabitants, but as influential participants in the cosmic dance. The colony awoke to a pale light that shimmered off the icy surface, signaling the start of another unpredictable day. Myra moved through the corridors, her mind already mapping the challenges ahead. Scifi's mating signals had begun to intensify, pulsing faster, brighter, and more erratically than before. Visitors from distant sectors had been drawn to the outpost in increasing numbers, their curiosity bordering on territoriality. Yet humanity's advantage, the subtle enhancement from Scifi's influence, remained. It was up to Myra and her team to turn it into a true strength. She entered the observation deck, where volunteers were already stationed at their posts, eyes glued to monitors, hands poised over controls. The rhythm of the signals, the movements of the visitors, and the constant feedback from Scifi's habitat demanded complete focus. Myra took a deep breath. Today would not be about reaction alone. It would be about strategy, influence, and guiding the chaos toward a controlled, beneficial outcome. A sudden alarm flickered across the display, signaling the arrival of a particularly unusual visitor. Its body shimmered like liquid metal, constantly changing shape, and its movement was unpredictable. Myra's stomach tightened. This was unlike anything they had dealt with before. Yet she knew the humans near the deck were sharper, faster, and more perceptive than any ordinary human could be. Their reactions would make the difference. "Tomas, direct the containment field to follow its movement in real time," she ordered. "Everyone else track its pulses and adjust Scifi's signals accordingly. Let's guide it, not fight it." The team moved with precision, each member reacting instinctively to subtle cues in the data. The visitor tested boundaries, extended tendrils toward the outpost, then retracted, pulsing in what seemed like curiosity. Myra adjusted Scifi's signals in response, amplifying certain frequencies and muting others. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the alien began to follow a controlled path. Myra realized a truth that exhilarated her. Humans were not just surviving the unpredictability, they were shaping it. The visitors were responding to subtle guidance, adjusting their behavior according to cues humans had learned to create. It was not force or aggression that held the colony safe. It was perception, intelligence, and creativity in action. As the day progressed, more visitors arrived, each unique in form and movement. Some shimmered with vibrant colors, their patterns shifting constantly. Others moved with sharp precision, their bodies like geometric puzzles in motion. Myra and her team analyzed each behavior, adjusting Scifi's signals to maintain control and balance. Even Scifi seemed to sense the growing competence of his human neighbors. His pulses slowed slightly when the visitors followed the intended paths, almost as if acknowledging the humans' subtle influence. Myra allowed herself a small smile. They were communicating across species in a way neither side could have anticipated, a silent, intelligent negotiation of presence and intent. The challenge grew when a cluster of particularly aggressive visitors approached the outer boundary of the colony. Their movements were fast, coordinated, and curious, testing both the containment field and the human's ability to predict responses. Myra's mind raced. A misstep could result in damage to the outpost or provoke panic among the visitors. "Focus on rhythm and intensity," she instructed. "We'll use Scifi's patterns to guide them. Think of it as a dance. They respond to cues, not force. Lead, don't push." The team synchronized perfectly. Signals were adjusted in a subtle flow, patterns matched to the visitor's behavior, and slowly the cluster veered away from sensitive zones. Myra watched with awe as the humans' enhanced perception allowed them to anticipate the aliens' movements with near-perfect accuracy. Every pulse, every adjustment was a calculated move in a complex living puzzle. By midday, the colony had established a stable pattern of interaction. Scifi's habitat glowed with controlled bursts of color. Visitors moved in predictable, non-threatening paths, and the humans were sharper, quicker, and more aware than they had ever been. The outpost was safe, not through isolation or weaponry, but through understanding, strategy, and adaptability. Myra took a moment to observe the humans at work. Their reactions, once slower and hesitant, were now instinctive. They anticipated visitor movements, adjusted signals before a problem arose, and maintained composure even under high-pressure situations. Humanity's ingenuity, she realized, had become the colony's true strength. The climax came when a massive visitor, larger than Sci himself, arrived at the edge of the field. Its body shimmered with hundreds of colors simultaneously, creating an almost blinding display. The colony held its collective breath. This was an intelligent being, capable of rapid assessment and response. One wrong signal could have caused chaos. Myra quickly devised a strategy. Instead of confronting it directly, she used Scifi's signals to create a path of interest, leading the visitor through a controlled route across the outpost perimeter. The team worked in perfect coordination, adjusting frequencies, intensities, and timing. The visitor followed, intrigued but not aggressive, moving gracefully along the guided path. As the day drew to a close, the colony had not only survived but demonstrated an extraordinary level of interspecies cooperation. Visitors were guided safely, Scifi's behavior remained stable, and humans had proven that intelligence, creativity, and adaptability were more powerful than brute force. Myra allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Humanity had been tested, exposed to unpredictable alien behavior, and yet had risen above it. They had turned uncertainty into opportunity, using observation, creativity, and instinct to manage situations that could have been disastrous. She walked through the observation deck, checking on volunteers. Exhaustion was visible, but so was pride. Every human present had contributed to a demonstration of ingenuity and resilience that no alien could have anticipated. Sci, for all his complexity and intelligence, had unknowingly provided humans with an opportunity to showcase their unique capabilities. As night fell, the visitors began to settle, drawn to safe zones and guided paths. Scifi's pulses slowed, becoming soft, rhythmic, almost contemplative. Myra watched him, recognizing a quiet acknowledgement of the human's influence. The alien's mating season, chaotic and vibrant, had revealed the hidden strengths of humanity. Myra stepped to the large viewport overlooking the icy landscape. Lights from distant stars reflected off alien bodies, glimmering in harmony with Scifi's pulses. She realized that this was more than survival. Humanity had not only adapted, they had influenced the environment, guided behavior, and demonstrated intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving at a level no one had expected. "This is what makes us human," she whispered. "Not strength, not weapons, but understanding, adaptability, and ingenuity. That is our true power." The colony's systems hummed quietly, monitoring visitors, recording data, and maintaining a controlled environment. Myra knew the mating season would end eventually, and with it, the intensity of interactions would fade. But the lessons learned, the skills honed, and the confidence gained would remain. Humans had proven themselves capable of responding to the unknown, of navigating chaos, and of shaping outcomes in ways no other species could. In the calm that followed, Myra allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had not only survived the unpredictable mating season, it had thrived. The visitors, the signals, and even Sci himself had shown that humans possessed a unique blend of intelligence, perception, and creativity. It was a reminder that, even in the most alien and challenging circumstances, humans could turn uncertainty into opportunity. As stars dotted the sky, Myra looked out over the colony. She felt hope, pride, and anticipation. Humanity had faced the unpredictable, the complex, and the extraordinary, and had emerged not just intact, but elevated. The future was vast, uncertain, and full of possibility. Yet for the first time, she believed with certainty that humans were ready for whatever the universe could throw at them. The pulse of Zypher's habitat continued, soft and rhythmic now, a quiet echo of the chaos that had passed. The colony, once at the brink of disorder, now thrived in harmony with alien visitors, guided by nothing more than human intelligence, creativity, and courage. Myra knew that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, strange, and unpredictable. But humanity, she realized, had the tools, the mind, and the ingenuity to not only survive, but to shape its destiny. And in this distant corner of space, under the glow of alien signals and distant stars, Myra felt a deep, unshakable certainty. Humans were not just part of the cosmos. They were capable of influencing it, of thriving within it, and of leaving their mark on the universe itself. The lights of the visitors shimmered one last time, and Myra smiled. Humanity had faced the unknown and, through intelligence, creativity, and courage, had proven that they were more than capable. The mating season, chaotic and strange, had revealed the extraordinary power of human adaptability. And with that realization, Myra knew the colony's future, and humanity's future, was brighter than any star in the sky.